What caused you to expand the scope from just mold remediation to more restoration? Today, I'm joined by the founder of Restoration Inbound. What's up, buddy? So glad to see you on the show.
Like, this niche for me just feels natural. 3 different case studies in another niche. I saw the results. And so I said, well, I can provide clear results here. I really enjoy working with the niche. I think we worked for like a month and a half to find the big enough market segment for fire water damage restoration companies.
As an agency founder, waking up every day, you want to build a business that you love helping these clients, you love being a part of their industry. Welcome to the Deep Specialization Podcast, the show where we blend focus, strategy, and client intimacy in order to scale and simplify our businesses and our lives. I'm your host, Corey Quinn. Let's jump into the show. Today, I'm joined by the founder of Restoration Inbound, Vlad Mkrtumyan. What's up, buddy? So glad to see you on the show.
I'm great. I'm so glad we did this intro. having a great time. Glad to be on.
Man. So we've known each other for a couple years now, and I think we got connected from. I think I reached out to you just as I was leaving Scorpion.
Cold email.
See, it works. And I was building my network, and I saw what you guys were doing at your agency, which at the time was called Logic Inbound. And you have since verticalized, taken a vertical market approach. And now the agency is called Restoration Inbound. And I love everything about your story, all the progress you made. And I was looking forward to having you on the show and just giving everyone an opportunity to hear more about you, learn more about you, as well as your journey from where you got started all the way to what you're up to now.
Thank you so much, Corey. And I will say, guys, Corey has been a mentor, a great advisor. I followed his book. I actually got 2 of his books over here, just so you guys know. Read the book twice at least. But I remember we met, and I was thinking about verticalizing and specializing. And when Corey reached out, and I was like, this is perfect. And everybody knows the company comes from Scorpion. They're a huge behemoth in this space. And it's I like to actually think to myself, it's the one cold email actually that was worth responding to. Maybe I should respond to more, is what this tells me. But I think I instantly hit it off with Corey because of his knowledge in this agency space. And then I guess let me ask you, I don't know why I'm interviewing you right now, but let me ask you, I guess, what did you think made us positioned? Because I think when you first met us, we were at 2 to 3 locations, mold and restoration. So we specialize in restoration. We had we had 3 restoration locations total when you met us. Yeah. So it's a little bit of a head start helped us there, right? Mm-hmm. But what would you say, I guess, helped us make a transition in the 2.5 years that you've known me successful?
Well, I think there was a couple of dynamics specifically with you. I think you had already taken a run at the niching, right? So you had, I think, a dental focus or a medical practice.
Naturopath, and we failed that horribly, but yeah.
So you had, I think you had already a taste for what's possible. You had a podcast that resulted in a couple of clients, and so, but that never, it felt based on what you shared with me, that never really took, right? And so I think, as an agency founder, you had been down the road a little bit. And I think you had a desire, I think, just thinking back real time, like you really wanted to become, a SaaS founder. You really wanted to build some software, right? And we had some discussions around this, right? I'm sure there's some truth to that still, right? And the discussions that we had was around this idea. My perspective on this is that the way to build a SaaS today is to go out and start a service-based business serving a very specific market. And then over time, you learn a lot about that specific vertical market, figure out what the main problems are that they're struggling with, and then fulfill those or resolve those problems initially with service, but then find a way to build software to replace that service, right? And so that was our conversation, and I think that didn't scare you off, and I think you still had an appetite for this idea of taking a vertical market approach. So I think you were predisposed to it, and then I think as we worked together and sort of we were coaching, I was coaching you a little bit. You and Hike, you guys, I think you went down the road a little bit and tried to figure out like what's the right vertical market for us. I know you guys tried mold remediation for a little bit, and so maybe I'll turn it back on you. So what about the vertical market approach appealed to you?
When you came to us, I think I just got two more naturopath clients. And the thing is, I think the thing most people are missing when it comes to specialization is, as cheesy as it sounds, because it's obvious, but the commitment. But for me, the commitment gave me a lot of clarity and perspective, because I did, for you guys listening out there, I did 50 episodes interviewing doctors, because I thought doctors was a niche, which it wasn't,
Right.
right? But out of the 50, I actually got one restaurant client out of it. So I was
Right.
like, this is a waste of time. But then what I saw, because it's my firsthand experience, firsthand is much different, right? If somebody says, if you do this, do this and that will happen, you don't know. But if you experience it firsthand, it's much more powerful. What happened to me is 2 years, is the next year, the following year, we actually closed two of the people we interviewed from the
On the
podcast.
podcast. Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I'm thinking about this the wrong way, you know? And then I was like, well, we now have two in this doctor type niche, naturopaths, but I also have three in this mold. And so really I wasn't clear. I was like, okay, well, which way can we go after? And I can actually maybe escape the sales process.
Yeah.
But really the main reason I think people listening out there that should know about niching down is the lead gen is what makes it the most powerful.
Mm.
Like your conversion rates go way up. They'll quadruple if you actually specialize, because now you can use the terms, you're a lot more knowledgeable, you just build a ton more trust out there, which
Yeah.
I kind of knew, and everybody knows intuitively. It's just a lot clearer once you do it.
So take me back to when you were doing the naturopaths. What worked and what didn't work back then?
The podcast definitely worked, I think, right? Except, just like I said, what made me predisposed is understanding that you have to think about this on a long time horizon. For
Mm.
the record, by the way, I attended two conferences in the past, and then what's happening today is I'm actually speaking at that conference I attended two times. Right now, this is the third time I'm attending, but now I'm a speaker.
Yeah.
So what really worked for me was thinking about it long term. So the podcast worked. I just didn't think it was working. Right? You know what it's like? It's like starting an SEO blog and saying, "Oh, blogging doesn't work or social media doesn't work," and then you're
A
laughing because you know what I'm
podcast.
going to
Yeah.
say.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Right.
You just do 10 posts and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
never mind.
Yeah. And I think there is that misconception as relates to taking a vertical market approach, that it's going to, as a result of doing that, everything will accelerate. And while there's certain aspects of that's true, the real benefits come over time. Once you begin to build a brand for yourself, reputation, a lot of respect, people believe you, they know you in that ecosystem. That is when you really see the big dividends, which is inbounds that are free, right? Because your current clients are raving about you to their network, and you have just a lot of credibility. The sales process, I think you've shared with me, is much faster, and as you said, much better close rates. So when we met, you said that you were working with a couple of naturopath clients. Why didn't you just pursue that? What prevented you from continuing down that road?
Well, it's in your book, right? One of the things is market size,
Mm.
right? That's a big thing. So I just, frankly, I didn't know how many naturopaths were out there.
Yeah.
The second thing is profit margin. So it's also the thing that is key for me is I enjoyed working with the restoration owners a lot more than naturopaths. Even
Mm.
though
So
naturopaths, they
important.
help people, my problem with them is, and maybe this is a bias. I'm just going to be
Mhm.
very frank, right? Hopefully, I don't offend anyone. But doctors, I think most of the time, if they have a PhD, they think they know everything, right? So it's like
Yeah.
they're not as open to get. It's harder to sell them. At least it was for me. Now there's huge companies like Patient Pop out there that specialize in the doctor category, and they crush it, right?
Yeah.
So it's not saying you guys can't out there specialize in dentists or whatever. There's $100 million plus dental and healthcare marketing. But for me, I was like, I was kind of tired of it, frankly. I had three different case studies in another niche. I saw the results. And so I said, well, I can provide clear results here. I really enjoy working with a niche. And then me and you, Corey, I think we worked for like a month and a half to find the big enough market segment for firewater damage restoration companies. I think
Yeah.
we initially started in mold. And that's the other tip for people out there, right? Maybe you're like in a sub niche. So for naturopaths, I think we were in too maybe small of a sub niche. What I should have done in retrospect, I should have taken a step back, and I said, oh, there's different type of clients. Maybe it's a holistic doctor or whatever. These doctors make a ton of money, right? It's just I just wasn't as excited about talking to them as I
Yeah.
like I like the restoration people a lot more. It reminds me of when I'm a kid playing with Tonka trucks, and like
Yeah.
really cool stuff. And, you know, there's burning buildings and all this cool stuff that I like, but it's just
Yeah.
personal taste.
And that's important as an agency founder waking up every day. You need to build the business. You want to build a business that you love, that you love helping these clients. You love being a part of their industry. That is definitely true. But when you mentioned that you realized that naturopath was too much of a sub niche, what are some indications that it's too, I guess, like a niche or a sub niche might be too small? Any
There,
recommendations?
Yeah, it's a great question. So one of the main things, I feel like I'm just, giving you everything you gave me from the book. But one of the things is conferences, right? You want to make sure that there's a large amount of your audience in conferences. And frankly, and over here in Seattle, we have something called Bastyr University, which is like the capital of natural. It's like the school of naturopaths in Washington.
Got it. Yeah.
But there's not like a lot of conferences around the niche, right? There's not a lot of big associations. Now, we actually ended up partnering with the Washington Association of Naturopathic Physicians, the WANP,
Mm.
and we did that conference, and that didn't really turn into too much, you
Yeah.
know. But then I remember, I guess this is another quote unquote hot tip for people looking to specialize. Pick
Yeah.
maybe two or three categories and attend each conference and see which one do you actually enjoy the most
Yeah.
from a client return on investment perspective, right? And then B, just a knowledge and field perspective. Because I didn't really do that enough, right? But once I started doing that, I think it's maybe in your book or maybe a post you wrote, Corey, where you talk about how going to a conference is like drinking out of a fire hose for knowledge.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's just not a lot of naturopathic events and going on that I know of or that I really, frankly, cared to go to as much.
Yeah. It just wasn't working. And then when it comes to the mold remediation, I know that you and I were working together around this time. What caused you to expand the scope from just mold remediation to more restoration? Like what was happening?
Yeah, the first thing is I think it felt natural. Like it just this niche for me just feels natural, and it's kind of
Mhm.
weird to say. It just gels. But I like the
Yeah.
people. The people are remind me of my family. They're blue collar, right? They work hard, and I like blue collar people. And then also my clients, they were talking to me about how they could help me, right? And how I was making a difference for them.
Mm.
So all of these things were great. I think the hardest thing is those first 2 to 3 clients are some of the hardest to get. And I felt in the restoration category I already had that. My naturopath clients, no offense to them. I have a couple of great ones, but a vast majority of them are really busy. And so it was hard for me to gain access. And I probably just didn't do a good enough job. I
Mm.
probably just hit it off with the restoration clients a little bit better, or I guess in the mold clients a little bit better, right? And they said, oh well, if you want to grow, you should do this. If you want to grow, you should do that. So yeah, it's just I guess more of a growth mindset that this initial set of clients had, and I think that's big. The initial set of clients, right? Just like your
Yeah.
initial team in a company can make a big difference.
Yeah. And that's some advice that I like to give, which is that sometimes an agency founder has a specific background, whether it's through their family. Like let's say their families are plumbers, and so you're going to start a plumbing agency because you grew up in the house knowing plumbers. But most of us didn't have that benefit, and so there's a great saying from Paul Graham, who's a famous investor guy, and when
YC.
he says that do things that don't scale. Right, when you're starting a business, just work with a lot of different businesses, try a lot of different things, do a lot of different services, and over time you begin to get some great feedback from the market, what you're good at, what you're not that good at, who you like working with, who repels you, and so on and so forth. And as a result of that, doing that for a year or two, you can at that point make a really high quality decision about, okay, based on these last year or two of experiences, the highs, the lows, the good and the bad, I'm going to take this direction and I'm going to go forward with confidence because I already know I'm going to be successful.
Yeah, that's big, Corey. And the other thing is, I think, we went from, I think, the beginning of the year, like 7 to we're up to over 20 restoration clients now. By the time people watch this, I don't know when, but I'll probably have more than that.
Yeah.
But the other reason I think we're growing so fast is we also had the wide experience of working with a lot of different types of clientele, and we
Mm.
had been $1 million agency, right, before, right,
Yeah.
and so we had a vast experience to lean on, and so we did the things that don't scale for probably too long, I would say, but it really does. I think that's great. And the advice I give to founders out there is, are you interested in doing the things that don't scale? Like I am genuine. It's weird to say, I
Mm.
am genuinely excited to go and shadow my clients and see the job in action. And I was at one point I was really concerned, by the way, because I went to a conference and they were talking about like zipper tape, and I was like, what, and I had food poisoning at a conference. It's a true story. I was actually had food poisoning, and I felt sick, and they were talking about magnetic tape and duct tape and all this stuff, and I was like, this is not exciting. And a mentor of mine told me, Vlad, if you don't find this exciting, you got to get out of the niche. But then I went and I saw it live in action versus like, because I didn't put it. It's like what I tell people. It's like looking at boxing gloves, and without anyone holding them, but then watching somebody box with them. You're like, okay, now this is exciting, and I can see how these boxing gloves, get put to action. So once I saw that, I just, my eyes lit up, and I was like, this is amazing. I tasted some of the fogging product my clients use for getting rid of mold, right? It's exciting. It's really passionate stuff, and I think if you build. What's interesting also is I think here's a huge sign for the naturopath industry. The more I learned about it, I was like, oh, this is good, right? This is interesting. Who doesn't want to be healthier? But in this category, the more people I connect to, I genuinely enjoy each conversation more than the last.
Yeah.
And I become more knowledgeable and become an even better expert. So that's something else that I think is a big sign that you're kind of going after the right niche. Is do you enjoy learning more and more about this and actually becoming a master?
Yeah. And so you went from 7 to 20. What was the path to get to 20?
All over the place, to be transparently honest. I remember so my partner's my name is Vlad. Obviously we have Evan and Hike. And then I told my virtual assistant, I said, do you know, she's from the Philippines. I love her. She's amazing. But I was like, do you know what it took to get to 20? I said blood. And I was thinking she was going to say sweat and tears, but she heard Vlad. So she said Vlad, Hike, and Evan. I was like, no, I said blood, sweat, and tears is what it took. So it really is, you have to fight for every client. And even right now, I'm pushing hard. But the reason I'm pushing hard is because I know, Corey, me and you talked about that. When you get at a certain number, I'm thinking around 35 or so.
Hey, it's Corey. I hope you're enjoying this episode. And I want to let you know that I have a new best-selling book that has just come out that gives you my proven system to escape founder-led sales. It's called Anyone, Not Everyone, and it's been endorsed by Aaron Ross, April Dunford, Dr. Benjamin Hardy, John Ruhlin, and many others. If you'd like to get the audiobook absolutely for free, there's a link below in the description, or you could simply go to anyonenoteveryone.com and start listening right now.
Then it starts getting faster. And what's cool is I can already see it. I can see, it's like, I think we're creating a fire, and I can already see sparks going off in different places. We already know that we can convert different leads from channels, from Google ads to conferences. We know those are profitable, for us, and other channels that we're using, right? SEO, etc. So, I've got a cold caller going now. So there's all these different channels, and I think for me, it's just really pushing as hard as you can, fighting every little connection.
As you do. It's the old saying about how do you get a rocket ship into space? Like a rocket ship will burn 80% of its fuel just getting out of the atmosphere. And then once it's up there, it just needs a little bit of fuel to just, in the zero gravity environment. So I think that's where you're at, really, honestly, just, where you guys are at. And I love the fact that you're pushing hard, because that will bear fruit, that will give you momentum. It'll become wind in your sales. Just the army of clients that you're building. So I'm excited for you about that. So where does software play in this whole thing? Are you still dreaming of building software one day, or how does that look?
We've already built, so that's the other thing, right? What made us unique as an agency is my partner and my cousin Hike. This is the other reason I think we can push ahead of all the other specialists that say they're specialists.
Yep.
Is they say, oh, well, I specialize in restoration, or they might say I specialize in dental. So my cousin Hike, who's a really smart Berkeley computer science major, we've built actually 2 proprietary pieces of software. But what's cool about it now is we're building it just for restoration marketing. So we're integrating it into our proprietary process. And so I jump on a call with a restoration company and I say, hey, here's our custom software that we've built. So it gives us a huge advantage over somebody that just says oh, well, I'm an expert. And they're like, oh, well, so does, Sally says she's an expert too. So I go, that's kind of like my one step ahead, but it's still hard. I think I'm still trying to figure out how to come up with an even better differentiator than just software. But what's cool about it is this software, it took me a while to learn this lesson. It's just, build software for either making you, saving you the most time, or B, making the most profit. So that's all we're focused on, is continuously building off our internal suite. And then who knows what's going to happen in a couple of years with that, or whether we're going to buy a business or whatever. But we just do know that we're going to focus on this industry and build this deep specialization in it.
What is the impact of AI been on your agency so far? What do you anticipate? What are the big changes, do you think?
This is good. Well, being the foremost expert in the world in AI, Corey, I'll tell you. Now, for us, AI has I tell people it's not as advanced as you want it to be yet, but it is getting there. From an SEO perspective, AI right now can write content. So I think what's going to happen is content writing is going to get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper because it's so much easier to blather words out there. But from a link building perspective, from getting other websites to say, hey, you're amazing, that actually takes some human touch because that's a salesman game, and nobody likes to be cold email spammed, right? So basically, the AI has not figured out link building yet, so I think that's very important still. But yeah, from a content writing perspective, it's great. From a forecasting perspective, it's awesome as well. It can forecast better. Really, it's just saving us a ton of time today, and it's still our ally. The beautiful part about being an agency owner is I used to think that I was competing with all these businesses. I was competing with AI, and I was competing with Angie's and Yelp and all this. Now what I tell people is my job is I'm just an integrator. So I integrate all these different pieces of software and all these websites, and to give you the result you need.
Yeah.
I do all the things you said you were going to do that you just didn't have time to do, and that's what you're paying us for, just to do it, but at an even higher level.
Yeah, I mean, my perspective on it is along those lines, which is that a restoration company is hiring you as a marketing specialist because they don't have the marketing know-how in-house. They don't have the people, the talent, and none of that stuff. And so you are effectively a marketing specialist who specializes in restoration. Well, just as they're going to depend on marketing experts who are external, they're also going to need to depend on AI experts. They're not going to stop what they're doing every day to become experts in AI. They need to use it as a tool to get ahead. And my perspective is that agencies such as yourself and others are in a great position, especially because you're focused in on the restoration market. You could understand the AI as it relates to marketing, and you could help them to begin to adopt AI in a powerful way. So effectively, you're becoming an AI consultant or an agency that helps them to implement a lot of these tools.
That's exactly it. We're consulting on the AI side. We're doing training.
Yeah.
And this is the other thing, I guess, right? Yeah. So we're utilizing it. We're creating products, AI products. So our software today that use AI to forecast. The other thing is, I always lie. The lie I think we tell ourselves agency owners is, oh, well, if you focus on a niche, then that's going to box me in. But what I told this to my friend actually the other day is what it does is it's really like right now your future might be blurry, but now I don't feel boxed in. In fact, I feel free. I feel like in the same position, except I now have these 2020 glasses on, 2020 vision, and I can see everything clearly about how I can maneuver. I see pain points much sharper and much better. And then to tie it back to AI, I think AI is just one of the pain points. I'm lucky I'm in the construction industry, right? So AI, my team members, or my clients, my industry, we don't worry about AI as much today.
Yeah.
So when AI disrupts, I think restoration, marketing, et cetera, then I think we're all going to be in, I think, a better position, frankly, because we're going to be probably, it's going to be the genie who will grant all wishes type of thing, where if it's just amazing like that.
Yeah. So the way I think about it is you want to specialize not in a platform, like becoming the TikTok agency. And you could do that certainly and have a great agency. But strategically, to me, it's better to specialize in solving a specific problem for a vertical market.
Yes.
How you do that, the tools will come and go. But if you remember, you're probably too young, but there was this platform called Vine, which used to be TikTok, but Twitter owned Vine, and it was a really big deal. And then, of course, it got shut down.
Oh yeah, I
So what do
remember
you do
Vine.
when you build all your positioning and all your marketing is focused on the fact that you're the go-to agency for a platform that's now defunct? Like, what do you
Yeah.
do? Like, you have to start over. You have nothing going for you. Versus if
Yeah.
you are an expert in helping restoration businesses with their growth challenges. Sure, you could bring in SEO, PPC, you could bring in AI, you could bring in TikTok, whatever those tools are. Doesn't really matter. What they're trying to do is they're trying to solve a problem of which you're very intimately aware of because of your specialization.
And I'll tell you this, Corey, I think AI, it's not creative, right? It's not a really creative tool. It can help you come up with some ideas, But the beauty of niching down is once you get the right AI segment, right, then it could actually give you much better,
Sure.
much better
Yep.
returns because you're using the same formulas every time. And that's the beauty of niching down, right? So it's like you're just using AI to compound what you're already doing, right? So the patterns are much simpler to utilize AI and utilize new tools when you are niching down in your category. The
Yeah.
other thing is the network that we didn't talk about, but if I see a referral partner, one referral partner actually alone from one of these conferences gave me 8 referrals because he trusts us so much because he sees our process. So the network just is a lot more powerful. Networking becomes a lot easier. So yeah, masterminding, all this stuff is just it compounds.
Yeah. Well, I think I've properly sold you on the virtues of doing it.
Well, you have. I think after. Oh, here's another good question. I guess I think you're asking is when Vlad, when did you get convinced that you should niche down? Because
Yeah.
even I was hesitant when I was at two. I remember you probably recognized when I was talking to two or three. I was like, oh, should I go for this niche? We're gonna do it. But I think for me, there was like a defining moment, probably when I was at like I'm gonna say past 7 clients or 8 clients. I was like, you
Okay.
know what? This is just slowly I can see it happening. And then now what's happening is it's slowly becoming faster and faster. But I'm sure that that once I hit 35, 40 clients, it's just going to be inevitable. It really sucks me up actually in terms of my attention because we're making more money, we're having more success in this category. That's really it's really exciting. And initially, I just wanted to do whatever business to consumer or software company that had nothing related to anything. But the more success, it's like success begets more success, and that's the beauty. But yeah, I would say around the 6 to 7 client marker, I could then see benefits happening. And I'll tell you why. Because once you get to that marker, that means you've probably got a network that's big enough. And a hot tip for people out there that are niching down already is what I do is I actually, and I don't think you have this in your book, it's a little tactic. I go back to my warm contacts in my network and I say, hey, now we're at 11 clients. Now we're at 13 clients. Now we're at 14. I just texted a guy today saying, hey, now we're at 20 clients. How have you been? Right. And it's just as an update, like I'm saying, hey, this is how I'm doing. So I give them
Yeah.
updates and build deeper and deeper relationships. But then the more clients I work with, I think the more credibility it builds. I'm sure there's a certain point it doesn't really build more credibility, but it helps me. I think maybe I'm
Yeah.
just
I
shoving it
mean,
in their faces.
you're creating psychologically. I think you're creating a sense of momentum and also, you know, what do they call it? The loss aversion that they're going to be left behind type of thing. So
So that was a big tip actually.
yeah.
So what we said is we said, hey, the first 10 clients that sign up with us, you're going to have my
Um,
partner is going to be your account manager. So that was a big deal. That's
Yep.
another hot tip. Like you want to, so one thing I've also learned and I'm learning now is the first X amount of partners, or sorry, X amount of clients that partner with you, you want to give them something special. And
Mhm.
so that's something that we're trying to figure out. Now that we're at 20, we're trying to think, okay, the first 30, right? What are they going to get? And then the next 40. And then I think eventually you don't really have to do anything special, but it's still good to have these promotional offers. I think that really helped us kind of speed it up as well. So they
Yeah.
saw our
Offers are great.
motivation.
Offers are definitely great.
Yeah.
What else? What else about this journey would be important? Do you think for the audience?
There's so much. There's never ending. So basically, the first thing is just like the journey, right? I'm only at. I would say we definitely done business with over 20, right? Restoration companies. I think a big one is if you talk to your other agency owner friends, they're not going to get it unless they're in it. So I would
Mhm.
actually highly recommend masterminding with other specialist agencies. So that's something I've done. Is I started specializing with masterminding with other specialists, right? And they get it. And also, what's cool is since you're never really competing because marketing is a $500 billion industry.
Right.
But even now, though, you're able to mastermind at a higher level, right? So that's huge.
Yeah.
The thing that I didn't think about was those repeat relationships from conferences, seeing the same person, right? And a big breakthrough for me was the conversations and the timeline. So I had to talk to this one guy. I actually closed. Oh, I don't know if a lot of people in your network that you've had on the podcast do this, but I closed 7 clients myself cold calling. And what I realized was, because I just hired another SDR and I let go of the last one, but what I realized was the reason I was able to close is because I followed up so many more times. It's because the relationships meant that much more to me. And I remember one of my clients, I looked at him and it took me about 2 years to convince them to switch over to me, right? And I'm not saying they're all going to take 2 years, but that really is kind of the work you have to do. It's a slower sales cycle, but what happens is even if you have a slower sales cycle, if you have 100 people, right, that'll take 2 years to close, right? They'll close that much faster.
Sure.
Um,
Exactly. It's a numbers
th-
game
yeah,
for sure.
yeah, exactly. Um, the other thing I think that's huge that people don't think about is when they specialize is going to referral partners. That was my
Mhm.
biggest one. I have a guy, he does estimations in the fire water damage industry, right? And so I think one of the early things I did, Corey, that you say in your book that's really golden is, and I'm great at networking. It's one of my biggest passions.
Yeah.
Is I went to 4 to 5 people in the fire water damage niche, and I said, "Hey, I'm committed to this industry. I've done this so far. I want to learn from you." And so that's actually why I have a speaking opportunity right now because I built this relationship over a year with another person who's exiting the industry. And then I got another project that way. I got a $125 million client that way as well, from the mentorship area. I think that actually the number one thing most business owners don't do is they don't have a great board of advisors slash
Mhm.
mentor network.
Yeah.
And if I was to go back, the first thing I would have told myself to do is to find 5 to 10 people just in the, like you in the agency space is great. And more importantly, in the niche you're at. That's like one
Yeah.
of the first things I would do is go get 5 to 10 people in your niche to educate you, to stay in touch with you. Obviously you want 10 versus 5 so you don't annoy them as much, right? But that was a big game changer for us because they give us so much knowledge
Yeah.
and I can't say how thankful I am to the advisors and the
Yeah.
mentors.
It's one of the things we built at Scorpion on the vertical level was something that's called an advisory board. And same thing, where it's clients and prospects who care about Scorpion or care about us. They want to see us win. Of course, we would incentivize them with like a big annual trip. We go out and take them out to Hawaii or something like that. And
Wow.
in exchange for that, we would get intel on marketing campaigns and gifts we might send, and what are the trends that are happening, and what our competitors are doing. So it's a really rich way to just really remain relevant in the marketplace. So I 1,000% agree with that.
Yeah. I think the next move for us is really just niching down even further. And what I mean by that is podcasts, content, right? And continue to build over those relationships. The other thing I'll say is the cookie campaign. That actually worked. It's in your book, right? So
Mhm.
we did that. We sent out 50 boxes of cookies, and we actually, well, not even 15. I think we did 20 boxes, 25, 30 boxes of cookies, and I executed on it horribly, I will say, but I still converted one client. But
Okay.
what happens is that one client, he's paying us, $1,000 every single month over time, pays for all the cookies, is super profitable, is a referral partner, right? So, but then what I did is now I'm getting to the next level, Corey, which is why I want to talk to you more in the future. But
Yeah.
basically, I started integrating the cookies. So I actually sent a cookies
Yeah.
over. Then I called the guy and I said, "Hey, I can't get through to the person." They said, "Email this email address." But then what happened last week was I actually said, "Hey, I'm actually flying into to your region, and I've talked to 5 restoration companies. I had one that agreed to meet with me. 2 others actually, because there was a big deal. I had a big franchise deal. Um, they agreed to meet, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna fly through and meet them. But then the other 2 said yes because I've talked to them for so long. So I actually went to, I had breakfast, lunch, and dinner,
Oh, you
and
did.
so I flew in, had breakfast, lunch, and
Smart.
dinner,
Yeah.
and the one that said yes that I had the least contact with and the least rapport with was actually the one I sent cookies to.
Yeah.
So now I'm thinking, man, my partners are going to probably want me to send 5 boxes of cookies every stay this flight.
It's a good problem to have, right?
But it is a
Yeah.
great problem to have.
Yeah. The cookies definitely work. They've got so many great success stories with that. I think it's still not widely used, but once people continue to hear about how good it is, the only people who are going to win are going to be the companies receiving all these cookies. They're all going to get,
Everyone's going to win from the cook. I mean, who doesn't want more cookies in the world? You're doing,
bakeries, yeah, the
yeah,
businesses and the
yeah.
agencies. Everybody's wins.
I think the thing people also have to realize out there is, saying to do a cookie or a cold call, right? Like that's just one thing, but doing it takes 99% more energy, right?
Yes.
Or 99 times more energy. And it really took time. Like for instance, I'll give you another example. So I did 1,000 cold calls. I closed 7 of them, right? the first 250 cold calls are basically nothing. Like they were
Yeah.
me just figuring out the script,
Right.
figuring out what to say, right? Being nervous, all that kind of stuff. So it
Mhm.
really is putting the work in to get the first turn of the wheel. And then as you keep turning it, it gets easier and easier. And you, because you've seen these objections and, as cheesy as it sounds, even the same jokes, right? Like I use the
Yeah.
same jokes on every call.
Yeah.
you know,
You
it's
just have to
just,
remember to tell them as if it was the first time you told it. Like, that's,
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly. I told him as if it was the first time, and it's hilarious because I'll use, but it's really that linear, and it gives me a clear indicator of how simple it would be to go ahead and hand off all the sales processes to a full-time account executive.
yeah,
And I have had my partners close these deals before. I'm
great.
just trying to be on top because I want to get to the first 35, make sure we get there myself. Um,
Yeah. That's a great way to build a system that is, um, it works. It's something that's repeatable and that you can hand off. And of course, if you build it right, it's not going to be dependent on you. You wouldn't be needed to close it because you have a system that you've already built. You know that works. You bring a good salesperson in, you bring them up on the system, you teach them, you train them, you mentor them, and then all of a sudden, you're no longer doing the deals. You have someone
yeah.
else who's just as good as you, maybe not 100% as good as you, but good enough so you can focus on the more strategic parts of the business.
And I'll tell you guys this, they could even be better than you as the founder, right? I mean,
Well,
most
that's
of the
the
time they
goal,
won't
right?
be. Hmm?
That's the goal, right?
That
And
is
the
the goal.
benefit of having a great salesperson is that that's their job every day, all day. So the amount of volume and amount of effort and investment in the sales process becomes exponentially higher versus a typical founder. I don't know if this is the case for you, but certainly like, 20 minutes here, a half hour there, a half a day here, a full day there type of thing. There's no
Yeah.
consistency.
Spinning plates, actually, yeah, that's the biggest thing. And here's the other thing, right? Well, so first of all, I'm going to say this. I think my cold caller that I have today, actually, I think he's better at cold calling than me.
Yeah.
That's the
It's a
thing,
skill for
right?
sure.
At least the volume he's producing, right?
Mhm.
But then in terms of focuses, right? The other thing with niching down is I was constantly spinning plates, and I'm still spinning plates. I'm spinning less plates now, though, right? And that's the thing. But it's really all around a category. So
Mhm.
I think that, and what's interesting is I see this at small businesses, at big businesses, but in this category, I can even see the hurdles that much clearer of,
Yeah.
hey, what makes a $500,000 restoration company versus a $5 million versus a $8 million. And then when I tie that back in, I actually just talked to a client today, and that was a $3 million restoration company. And I told them, I said, how would you like to be introduced to a $5 million restoration company? And they were like, that's phenomenal. I'm like, great. I'll introduce you to one of the people in my network. And my passion is connecting people. So
Mhm.
that goes a really long way. And especially if it's somebody who runs another business or another restoration company in a different state. So they're completely not competing,
Mhm.
you know? So that was a lesson learned. The other lesson learned is people will say, I actually had this myself, Corey. I think I went to you with this challenge. Is sometimes my clients speaking the same state thing will say, oh well, how many of me are you going to serve in the state, right? And so I have a simple retort for that one now, and I always say, what do you think would happen if you were the fourth largest company in the state? Whatever you fill the niche in, what do you think would happen? How much money do you think you'd be making if you were the fourth largest plumber? And most of the time, you're not going to be talking to eight-figure companies. They're going to
Mhm.
be, 3 million, 4 million. They'd be like, oh, if I was making eight figures, I'd make a lot of money, wouldn't I? I was like, yeah, that's great, right? So wouldn't you want partner with a specialist that could help you get to that level much faster? And then once you get there, we can help you build an internal team or do whatever you want,
Yeah.
right? Before you think about like, oh, well, why am I working with an expert here, right? They're preventing me. I'm actually helping you speed it up, right? So let's
Yeah.
get you to number four before we get you to number one. And that's a big tip from that I wish I would have had in my pocket in terms of, versus I used to say, oh, well, I used to say, oh, that's very valid. You want to be the number one. It's like, listen, you're not even number one yet, buddy. You're not even number four. But if you were let's aim for number four. You
Yeah.
know, let's get closer before we think
Right.
about being
Let's
number
not
one.
cross that bridge. We're not there yet.
Yeah, yeah,
Very cool. Very smart. Yeah,
yeah,
it's a real problem, and I think smart agency founders and salespeople have to be able to navigate that conversation because you're going to need to expect it, especially if you're working with local businesses that are ambitious. They want to grow. They're probably competitive. So how you answer that is actually really important. Being front-footed in that conversation signals that you're a true leader in the space.
Yeah, and I told a plumbing client actually who just introduced me to another plumbing client, and he referred me, the same person in the same states. And you might guys may be asking, well, why are you working with plumbers, Vlad? Are you in restoration? Yes, I am. However, in Corey's book, he says, hey, don't turn everybody away, right? You can still take money. So that's the other insight I had. Is it's not like if somebody wants to, like, we have another deal on the table right now, $10,000 a month they want to give us. I'm not going to say no to that. I'll take that money, but I'm investing in the future I want. But then the beauty of plumbing is it's actually a related industry because
Sure.
they refer a lot of plumbers refer a lot of business to restoration companies. So what you can do is once you build up at a big enough level is you can then go to your existing clients and you can say, hey, you know how I got you all these great results? Yes. Guess what? We're starting to specialize in this next niche now.
Yeah.
So this is after reach, I'm sure 100 plus or whatever, and you freed yourself and you get
Yeah.
big enough.
This is not a sink or swim kind of strategy. It is keep the lights on, be practical. But to your point, it's it's a forcing function going forward. If I'm going to go to a conference, I'm probably not going to go to an attorney conference. I'm going to go to a restoration conference, right? I'm not going to buy a list of dentists. I'm going to buy a list of restoration companies, right? It helps to simplify all of your marketing. You mentioned podcasts and conferences and blogs and all of these things. Now you know exactly what to do.
Yeah, it's huge. And as you know, I think a lot of these things that sound simple, but when you experience them, they're a lot more powerful. So, improving, like, here's another example, right? Improving your pitch by 10%, right?
Mm.
That is a lot more powerful if you do that same pitch 90 times a day versus if you got a specific, if you got a new sound, it sounds the same, but a new pitch to all these different clients, right? So I think it really is the compounding factor here. Another thing I was actually going to say is if you think about these two plumbers in the same states, right? Like, yes, they're getting me business, and I the only reason I thought that is because they were referred to me from the restoration industry. But I think the key point is we're continuously having a theme the whole company can really focus in about. So the other area that improves is the meetings. So we have internal meetings every month. And what's cool is the more we get of these, the higher the morale of our team goes up.
Yeah,
Even if your revenue stays the same, as long as you're getting more restoration companies, right? Or as long as you're getting whatever, X company, they're seeing that you're being successful in something, and that makes everybody else rally behind you,
a
you
hundred
know?
percent. I mean, the best clients that account managers love to deal with are the ones that are happy. And it's definitely true in sales as well. Like sales teams and salespeople they love momentum, right? And they get momentum because, like you said, you have the same sales pitch. You're selling the same thing to the same people over and over and over again. You tell the same jokes, maybe, right? But whatever it is, you're able to, through repetition, to your point, you're able to get much better at it, right? So what's the old Bruce Lee saying? It's like, I don't fear a man who's done a
A
hundred
thousand
kicks.
different kicks.
What's that?
I don't fear the man who's practiced a thousand different kicks.
Right.
I only fear the man who's practiced one kick a thousand times.
Exactly. Right. And so just through that repetition, the salespeople will begin to become very familiar with the restoration business or whatever vertical market. And as a result of that familiarity, they're able to speak at such a deep level using the insider words and understanding the nuances of the business. It's such a nuanced and deep, as I said, deep level. You're automatically building trust in relative to all your competitors who maybe just have a landing page about restoration. If you're truly a deep expert, you're going to run circles around your competition.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what's happening. And I'm really lucky because the restoration marketing industry, I'm not going to lie, Corey, it is competitive. There's a lot of people now that are saying, "Hey, we specialize in marketing for restorers, etc." But the great news about us is we went to the next level, which is we started building software, right, for the
Mm-hmm.
industry, and
Beautiful.
then we're committed even more. So whatever you guys can out there can do to give yourself more and more of that edge, I think every little edge compounds itself. Um, yeah, I think overall, if I could go back in time, I wish I would have just done it sooner. You know, that's
What would you have done differently?
if I could go back in time, I would have went to conferences much faster, right? Because you create those connections, right? That's a big one. I would have looked for companies with high margins. High margins is a big one as well, right? Yeah, it's like my top three would be: do they have good margins? Do you enjoy speaking with the people,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And are you willing to invest in the time? And you only get that after trying. But there has to be enough of them with high enough margins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Last question, Vlad. What's your motivation?
My motivation, I mean, you're asking a psychology bachelor's degree student, so there's definitely a lot of answers there, right? To this day. Um, so do you mean just from a business sense, from a life sense?
I'll let you take it however you want.
So the way I measure my life is through health, wealth, and relationships.
Mm.
That's basically how I got this from a billionaire actually by the name of Jim Sinegal. I met when I was 20 years old. He's founded a company called Costco. So at 21, I
Costco?
met the founder of Costco. Yeah, he
Okay.
was kind enough to give me 30 minutes of his time, and there was like three other people my age actually. His secretary is smart. She put us all into one group. I didn't know that, but it's like yeah, they're all a bunch of 21 dumb 21-year-olds, whatever, right? Uh, um, and so he said, focus on that. So it's health, wealth, relationships, and that's what life to me is about, and taking care of. And the relationships part is the most important because if you have the right relationships, then you can, I can talk to people about health. I can talk to them about wealth. I can talk to them about other great people. So those are kind of like, that's like the trifecta, and I'm trying to build the best habits I can. So that's what motivates me. And in the wealth building element, I think niching down is one of the best ways somebody can get there the fastest way. So.
Well, you know that I'm a huge fan of yours, and I love that you're getting all this great success, this early success in restoration, and I can't wait to bring you back on the show in another year to hear how everything has gone.
100%. I predict that we're going to be definitely 1 year from now a lot more unless COVID-3 and the zombies take over or something, right?
Let's hope
I
not.
think, yeah, I think if we stay focused, which we will stay focused. I think we're going to be a lot more successful next year and have a lot more restoration clients than this year. So I'm excited for that.
Cool, man. Well, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
That's it for today. I'm Corey Quinn, and I hope you join me again next time on the Deep Specialization Podcast. If you received value from this show, please go to Apple Podcasts and leave us a review. Thanks, and we'll see you soon.